Freedom. Oh, my people. Free the vibes. Free the vibes. Thank you very much. For those who don't know, they should know. The theme of the summit is protecting creativity through participatory reforms. This theme is informed by the fact that it looks like the kind of reforms we want, the kind of reforms that are happening in our creative space are one-sided, whereas all stakeholders need to get involved. Yes, we understand there are threats to national security. We understand there are incitement. We understand there are possibilities of political tensions, but it is not enough for one side to just decide arbitrarily that this is the way to reform. So, thank you. This slide, please. Production crew. Please, let's, this is dedicated to...
Everybody say yeah, yeah. We still in your city alive, make it on sell this nonsense.
This presentation is dedicated to the memory of the Afrobeat legend, Fela Anikulapo. A man whose legacy. This presentation is dedicated to the memory of, please let the slide be on, just stop the music. Just the music to stop. Okay. So we dedicate this presentation to the memory of the Afrobeat legend, Fela Anikulapo, for his legacy of leveraging the power of music in the fearless political activism against corruption, the trauma of colonialism, and mistreatment of Nigerian and African people all over the world. A man who used his music selflessly to fight injustices, not only in Nigeria, but across the continent of Africa. Please, let's give a round of applause for Fela Anikulapo Kuti. The man that laid the foundation for what we are fighting for today, because he was reportedly arrested more than 200 times on 200 occasions. Next slide, please. So this presentation will be addressing what is the role of artists in a democracy. Nigeria, I believe we are practicing democracy. And if it is so, then artists are citizens who have an important role to play. Artistic freedom, what does it mean? What is the concept of artistic freedom? How free is free? We'll also be looking at the challenges of defending artistic freedom in Africa, not only in Nigeria, in Africa. Some research findings that informed our establishment of this organization, because we didn't just set up Unchained Vibes Africa if there was no problem. The findings, when the problems kept coming, will be briefly showcased. And of course, practical cases. In recent times, what are happening to artists all over the country, with specific focus on Nigeria. Next slide, please. So if we take a look at this gathering, these are politicians and voters. As we are about to step into the season of elections, this video says something about the role that artists play. The politicians united, irrespective of their ethnicity, the Igbo man, the Hausa man, and the Yoruba man, they put together Ghana Must Go bags, addressing potential voters, asking them to vote a particular against their conscience, sharing money in exchange for their votes. So this song, please, can you give us a few seconds of this song?
Don't sell your photo. Yeah. Okay. If you look at the situation, everything harsh for this our nation. Poverty rising and inflation, lines still there for the fuel station. Things gotta change by determination. This election, no intimidation. Protect your selection, we gotta make sure everybody votes count for the future.
Shine your eye well. Don't let anybody deceive you. Don't let them take your vote from you. Now your future be that. Yeah, now your future. no be that, yeah. Oh, yeah. Together we can make Nigeria better.
Thank you, thank you. You can stop the video. Okay, so the message is clear. INEC had to sponsor this musical production because of the menace of vote buying. Politicians became obsessed with buying votes, you know, buying people's votes. And of course, because of the influence of artists got involved and were commissioned to do this production to enlighten and sensitize people. That we complain about poverty, we complain about all these things, but the only way we can make the change happen is when we elect the right people. So when somebody gives you 2,000 naira and buys the next 4 years, which may impact generations, then we can never get the change that we seek. So that's the message from that song. So that is not the only way that artists want to be involved in the political process, in the democratic process. Artists have also the responsibility of demanding accountability of those we vote. They have the responsibility of questioning the policies and actions of government and people who occupy political offices. These are fundamental rights of any citizen, including artists. And artists, the power they have, the weapon, like Fela said, is music and film and other artistic expressions. So it is within the right of artists to even protest peacefully. You can protest if something is going on in your country and you don't like it. You have the rights, your fundamental, as long as you are not inciting violence or any criminal activities. So all these issues, because beyond just sensitizing people to vote, to observe their civic obligations, we also have right to question, to hold people accountable to these citizens. So all these put together are within the concept of artistic freedom. What is artistic freedom? According to UNESCO, artistic freedom is the freedom to imagine, create, and distribute diverse cultural expressions, free of governmental censorship. Please, let's underline that phrase, governmental censorship, political interference, or the pressures of non-state actors, religious people, traditional establishments, Boko Haram people, and other non-state actors. Yes, it does not end there. Artistic freedom, according to UNESCO, also includes the right of the audience. People who want to access the heart. Because if you ban a song now, a song that criticizes the authorities or provides information that people don't know. Somebody was alleged to have received a bribe, and the information was on the internet, and nobody was talking about it, and the musicians recorded a song and released it, and people began to understand what was happening. So if people are denied that access to information, then there's a violation of artistic freedom, not only to the artist alone, but also the audience. Next slide, please. Okay, so somebody almost 20 years ago sang a song, Nigeria Jaga Jaga. Incidentally, more than 20 years actually. Yeah, I think it became popular in 2004. So, but it was, yes. So somebody sang Jaga Jaga, which was a protest song to vent his frustrations about the country. Yes, to draw attention to the ills and troubles that are happening as a result of bad governance, in his opinion. And they say we have that right to express our opinions as long as you are not committing crime with it. So please, let's just have a bit of, I'm sure everybody knows that song, but just to refresh our memory. Please, this song.
I think I hear some reality right here. Turn up my microphone. Shit. What's up, turn my microphone on, shit. It's time to hear some reality. 204, Advocacy. What up?
Nigeria Jaga Jaga, everything's scatter scatter.
Thank you. Okay, this is a protest song. It's a right of the artist. It's a fundamental right. But of course, after the release of the song, we all know what happened. The president, the then president, on a national TV, called for his arrest, his abused, and later some overzealous security operatives harassed him, intimidated him, brutalized him in a way, and he had to temporarily flee the country. So, next slide. So, I don't want to go to the Fela era, because we have a lot of young people around, young artists, and then some youth advocates from the University of Lagos and all that. Some of them will not understand what happened in the case of Fela, but at least a good number of people can remember Idris Abdulkarim's case. So how free is free? Because we are a Pan-African organization, and our other organization that we worked with, Arterial Network, put this creation together to depict our freedom of artistic expression in Africa. As you can see, the map of Africa is hanging on two crutches, and the base is tied. So it can't move, the legs are tied, and the crutches, So this is the reality of our artistic freedom, because, first of all, if you are a filmmaker in Nigeria, before you release a movie, no matter what it is, you have to submit it to National Film and Video Censors Board. So that is our situation in Africa, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa. Please. Undue censorship. Folarin Falana, Faust, popularly known as Faust, released a song, This is Nigeria, in 2018, to protest the slow response to Boko Haram when they kidnapped Dapchi girls, because they had already kidnapped over 200 and something in 2014, and nothing happened. And this Dapchi case also happened, and this was 2018. I wonder what the guy would have. This song was banned. It was banned with some flimsy excuses that it depicted hijab, and as such, it can incite religious violence and all that. What the? My apologies for my language, please. So this song was banned to buttress what UNESCO is saying about artistic freedom as far as audience is concerned. This is just an individual band. That song on YouTube has 19 million views. 19 million views. So if YouTube does not exist, probably 19 million, let's assume, because today is over 25 million. So probably 25 million people would have been denied access to the information that Mr. Falana was passing across. Next slide, please. Some of us will remember what happened at the Artist Village at National Theatre, where some artists were targeted because of their agitation for the planned sale, against the planned sale of National Theatre. And then some people were singled out and their studios were demolished. One of them was shot in the leg. Please. Police informed, Mr. Ikule, police was responsible for this. We invited the police people, all of them, they ran away. They picked their calls, but they knew what would happen here, so they didn't come. Please, the slide, please. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so before we set up the organization, as a founder, because I've worked across the continent of Africa, we conducted a research, and between 2019 and 2020, we analyzed 81 cases of politically motivated censorship, attacks, prosecution, and imprisonment. Shockingly, as a Nigerian, the northern part of Nigeria tops the list of the largest violators of artistic freedom. 20% of all cases, all the 81 81 cases that I reviewed. Other countries that followed Nigeria were Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Cameroon, Rwanda, Sudan, and Zimbabwe. Next slide, please. So here's the percentage, but because of the time, I don't want to bore us with further analysis. Next slide, please. Let's move. Okay, so these are the case studies I want us to have a look at. This young man, his name is Mohammed Yusuf, stage name AGY. He was imprisoned over a song, a protest song, about a governor's policies and perceived corruption. We all recall that in Kano, there was a split of the Emirate Council into 4 divisions. And a lot of people were not happy about it, including this young singer who recorded a song and protested against it, that it was desecration of the traditional institution and all that. So in the course of this song, please, let's have the next slide, please. You can play this song. Let's just have a bit of it. I'll translate. Thank you. So the message in this song, it says only one king is acceptable to the people of Kano, and that king is Sanusi. The governor is creating crisis, that people love themselves, but the governor is trying to create crisis. It is not worthy of note that this guy never mentioned his name. He never mentioned his name in this song. He used some fictional references that a governor. Unfortunately, he was picked up. He was arrested on a Monday, arraigned in court on Tuesday, and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment on a Wednesday. You can see that our justice system is so fantastic. Within 3 days, he was sentenced. And I know that I have some copyright infringement on my listing for the past 10 years now. No solution. So I'm so excited that... Moving on, please. Next slide. Yes, this case is not the kind of case we support or we encourage. But there's also the human rights angle of it. This broadcaster is also a poet. So he recorded a poem, which was a protest. Please, next slide. Well, the case involves the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, whom we invited. We actually invited Alhaji Lai Mohammed. I would have loved to play this poem so that we can engage. But I will just have let's just have a teaser of it. It's translated by Sarah reporters. It's a serious protest poem.
ṣùgbọ́n bẹ́ẹ̀ bá dúró láyé Muhammed bẹ́ẹ̀ bí lọ́mọ bí ẹni fìkìní jóná lórí láyà Muhammed tó parọ́parọ́ tó dìde ọdún gbọ́ọ́rọ́gbọ́ ó fi rọ́ rẹ̀.
Okay. Yes, we as an organization, we don't encourage this approach. We encourage leveraging that fictional, imaginative space that art offers. We don't encourage it. But we are also shocked, we are also agitated that by virtue of a position, somebody's position in government, there are 2 issues. Defamation of character case should not be a criminal case. It should be a civil case. If somebody defames me, I can go to court. I should go to court. Let the court decide that the person is guilty. But when we begin to criminalize speech, expression, then our democracy is you know, there are so many question marks on our democracy. So that is the problem that we have with this production. And incitement, according to UN, I'm sure we have our legal practitioner in there, so permit me to just express my view. The UN Secretary General stated that incitement, that hate speech has no place. There's no legal definition for hate speech. So you can decide to say this is hate speech. Somebody calls you a fool, you can say it's hate speech. But I don't know how the court can admit as an offense if somebody calls you a fool. So that is our position with this case. We feel that our laws, especially the Cybercrime Act, that has now criminalized speech, that law needs to be abolished. People should be free to go to court and seek redress for any defamation or whatever they feel about expressions about their personality. So that's our position on this. We are not saying the artist is not guilty or whatever, but we need the rule of law to take its course in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Then we have a filmmaker this year, I think it started in December, that was declared wanted for releasing not even the full drama series, just a trailer of a drama series intended to educate teenagers about sex education. It's about sex education, to educate them about reproductive rights and other issues associated with female genital mutilations and all that. Because of some religious extremists, I'm a Muslim myself, but when we put the campaign online, we started getting so many threats and harassment online and all that, that we are attacking Islam or something. So that is the problem. Please, the slide. Okay, and most recently, last month, many of our participants of Freedom Voice will remember that we addressed the issue of Nollywood. The new narrative that is emerging, to justify censorship. Nollywood is now being blamed for rising ritual killings. That because of the movies we release in Nollywood, we are encouraging crime, kidnappings, ritual killings, and all that. There have been calls for censorship from the Nigerian police, from House of Representatives. Please, next slide. And a directive from, as read in the news, that there was a directive from Alhaji Lai Mohammed to the National Film and Video Censors Board to implement a policy that will make it impossible for people to release movies about money rituals. We are shocked to hear that. Please, let's play the video.
Actors, they should please, the censor board, they have a lot to do to regulate the type of film we'll be bringing out, because some of them, they learn it in film where they see that somebody make a ritual and he became rich suddenly. No matter how that film ended, we should discourage it, because I don't know what we can call this type of juvenile or what we can call this type of incident.
Next slide. Well, before you play the next video, we don't really have a problem with what the police has said. Incidentally, he's invited to this event. And I've spoken to him on phone. This is what you said, blah, 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 blah. He said, yes, he said it. And yeah, that the practitioners will be together and would like to engage to have, so that you can have their own side of the story. He has not been picking my calls again. So, and incidentally, he's not here. See, the next slide, please. Yes, please, let's hear from the House of Representatives.
Of the role of the Nigerian movie industry in molding behavior patterns in our society, preserving the mandate of the National Film and Video Censors Board as a clearinghouse for movies produced in our country. The House calls on the Executive Director, National Film and Video Censors Board, to rise to the mandate of the agency as the clearinghouse for all movies produced in our country, and mandate the House Committee on Information.
We are very glad that you are here, sir.
Ethics, values to report back to the House within 4 weeks.
This was a resolution of the House. There are some other things, but the census board action, a directive to census board, was specific in this resolution. And so we also reached out to the minority leader, and we spoke several times. Then he was explaining what he was. I said, yes, but I'm not the one, because I understand what you're talking about. We have the community. Please, let's engage the community so that we can be on the same page. We are all Nigerians. We all love Nigeria. Let the reforms be participatory. And that's what he also has not been picking my calls. Next slide, please. And we heard that it was reported in the news that Alhaji Lai Mohammed gave a directive that a reform, quote and unquote, should be implemented to ensure that content, movie with money ritual content should be regulated in a way that, of course, it will be impossible for them to release. But we vehemently disagree. And unfortunately, we also invited Alhaji Lai Mohammed, and we didn't get any confirmation that he will be here today. Next slide. So at this juncture, I will pass the mic to my colleague, Sola Alamutu, the advocacy manager who conducted this research, because we wanted to, okay, let's not just say let's just not rely on our subjective opinion about these issues. Let's reach out to the young people. What do they feel about this narrative of Nollywood being responsible for rise in ritual killings? And the Green Queen of Africa is here with me to give us the lowdown of the outcome of that research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Freedom! Free the vibes! Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow lovers of creativity. It is a pleasure to have you here today to celebrate and to mark our first Democracy Vibes, a summit on censorship and artistic freedom. Yes, thank you. So, on the 16th of March, the Pan-African Non-Governmental Organization Unchained Vibes actually conducted and posted on our Facebook page a question which reads thus: do you believe Nollywood is responsible for rising ritual killings in Nigeria? We had 1,500 likes and 149 main comments, and we had 10 people sharing that question of the week. Do you believe Nollywood is responsible for rising ritual killings? As Ayo said, there has been a lot of talk and debate on ritual killings and how Nollywood is influencing it. Next slide, please. From the pie chart, we can see that, and I'm happy that majority of the people, that's 58%, said no, it is not Nollywood that is responsible majorly for killings, ritual killings in Nigeria. And this was some of the comments, some of the opinions that they have on why there's an increase in ritual killings. One is bad parenting. I'm sure parents know that they have a very, very major role to play in the lives of their children, whether they're children that you birthed or the children that God has given you to look after as guardians, or perhaps matrons, for example, in school. People who care for children, they're all your children. So you are a parent, and it is your right, and it is your responsibility to look after them. And another opinion was that there's an increase of get-rich-quick syndrome and greed, which is permeating through the system. Many youngsters have fallen into this category of people. And there's a lot of blood money rituals going on, and they're actually posting this on social media. Also, some of these comments, some of this 58% said that corruption and bad government is responsible for the increase. And this is because of what they see our supposed leaders doing online and offline. Next slide, please. The pie chart, please. Still there, okay. So, yes, okay. Then we have just about 18%, felt that, yes, Nollywood is responsible. Of course, we all know that watching movies and listening to music has some influence on us. However, one of the things that I know for a fact is that at the end of the movies, there's a story, there's a learning that is there for people to take home. So what are you learning? At the end of the day, does the person who killed get away with it? The people who were involved in armed robbery, did they get away with it? Those who got money from ritual killings, did they get away with it? If you watch very well, you'll see that the answer is no. So people pick up whatever it is they feel like picking up. We are responsible for what it is that we teach people, but we are also responsible for what it is we take from what it is that we see. Even the Nollywood practitioners go out of their way to teach. They're a mirror of society. And that's what it is a lot of the comment said, that they're actually mirroring what is happening in society. And that's what movies should be. And even music, that's what it's supposed to be. If you listen to music, you realize that it's what it is that's going on. From the 60s, 50s, 40s to now, music has evolved based on what is happening in society. And the same thing with movies. If you watch movies, you realize what was happening before is not necessarily what is happening. There are a few variances depending on what is happening. So what it is we are saying is that Nollywood cannot be said to be solely responsible for the increase in ritual killings. We've seen that parents have a role to play. Everybody generally has a role to play. Government has a role to play. And they cannot push it on Nollywood. They cannot push it on the artist and say that it is our fault, because I'm a creative as well. It is our fault that there's an increase in ritual killings. It's supposed to be a joint effort. So they should not push that on us. They need to be responsible for what it is that is happening in society. If we have the support of government in everything that we do, I'm sure what is happening now will not continue. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, G Queen. The bottom line from our research, from our work, from all the advocacy we've been doing, artistic freedom remains a grossly violated right in Nigeria. So we are not surprised that a new narrative is being created to justify why artistic expressions, especially those that expose insecurity in Nigeria, the scale of insecurity in Nigeria, corruption and other issues that we battle with, are being silenced. Violators are driving false narratives using excuses of religion, national security, cultural values, etc., etc. Without improvement, and that's why we don't just want to be doing one-sided advocacy, or just making noise, or just enjoying ourselves, partying and singing, protesting, without engaging. And that's what informed this summit. We want to engage, to have the change that we seek. Because without that, artists have only two options: to self-censor or risk severe punishment, as it's been happening around the country, especially in the north, where when you say something, you go to jail with your music or film or anything. Thank you very much for your attention.